Colonel Stan Labo, the Bishop was talking about knowing your environment. But in today, let's go from the big cities to the rural areas, or I don't know, whichever way you want to go it. In the big cities, you have gated communities, you have high walls. So I might be living in my house for the past 5 years. I don't know who lives in the next house because the walls are so high, the gates are not see-through. So how would I know who my neighbor is? And I leave at 5 a.m. and I come back at 11 p.m. So he or she might be having odd hours as well. So we never see. That's one. But take that down to the rural communities where even if I know who Alera is, she's my neighbor, how do I get in touch with the authorities when I see things I do not understand?
Well, maybe I should start from the second because I really want to react to the first, the urban aspect, which has to do with you living in a community. Let me say the elite style of living. Maybe I should just put it that way. I've had a personal experience with that. As an ADC, I know I lived with my boss in a given estate where all the big names in the town lived in. And you will not believe for nearly 2 or 3 years, we were looking for our neighbor, a big name in the state. We didn't know where she was living. And this is a lady who was very close to my boss's family for about 2 years or thereabout. Until one day we all met at a function, and in the course of it, they got to exchange address, and it dawned on us she is just our neighbor next door. This is a community where it's an estate where whenever the gates open, a Lamborghini drives out and the gate shuts. Another gate opens, a Range Rover drives out and the gate shuts. Nobody knows anybody. I think we should...
So that should be discouraged.
Thank you. That's why I said I wanted to address that. I have had a personal experience of it.
Your next door neighbor.
Your next door neighbor.
You were looking for her for 2 years.
Thank you, madam. This is real. Real, I said. Then we'd never had all this cell phone thing. Good. I'm telling you, it was at a function that we got to know, you mean she's our next door neighbor? When we were driving back, my boss was saying, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. We were all shocked. Well, having said that, we must discourage that, like you've said, Alera. The other aspect, which has to do with
the rural community.
Yes, the rural communities where you find it difficult maybe reaching out to security agencies. I want to say that today we have a reasonable spread of divisional police offices all over. And besides, I think if you are scared of the police, I think there are certain layers below the police which you could approach. If only community leaders can make themselves quite accessible and they have what it takes to be approached. We know that some of our community leaders are so compromised to a point that taking certain information to them puts you in very...
At risk. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right? But if such layers at the community level could be that upright that you could approach, fine. But it is not enough to discourage us in any way from approaching security agencies and making sure that as we see something, we say something. Let me just add before I leave this. Most of us live in estates. I know you live in my estate. I got to know that only yesterday.
Oh,
most of
another
us,
experience.
Most of us live in estates where most of our security men are foreigners. Despite all we are saying about Boko Haram, most of us, our security men are either Chadians, Nigerians, Malians, you mention it. Do you know how much can you vouch for this guy? If you understand the sleeping nature in which, when we talk about sleeper cells,
yes,
in terrorism, if you understand the way they operate, that guy can be with you for the next 2-3 years and is part of a sleeper cell. Just there waiting and gathering information and knows everything about you. Have you ever followed him to Niger? Never. At best you say, go and see your family and come back.
No, he's going for planting.
Good. In most cases, yes.
Yes.
They say they're going for their farming season.
In the farming season.
Yes. And so on. until the day they strike. And the day they want to strike, you'll be shocked because they understand the entire environment. Yeah. They take steps that will shock you because they know you better than you think you even know yourself. They know you down to even your roots. What is then my own solution to this, given the peculiarities of our situation? I have said this several times with other media, other media platforms as this. The time has come for the Interior Ministry to ensure, and we must enforce it, however inconveniencing it's going to be, to ensure that every landlord draws his security from a private security company. The private security companies have their personnel well documented, know everything about them. They've carried out some level of due diligence on them because the companies know whatever goes wrong, they have to come in.
They'll be held liable.
They'll be held liable, that's it. And part of the advantage of this is that we will be providing jobs to our citizens. Most of these boys roaming around the streets will now be able to find jobs through such companies, rather than we giving jobs to foreigners who are also very harmful to us, destructive to us. It is important to say some of these things on air. And if only those in government are listening, I think they should consider such advice, give it some serious thinking, and see how we can implement it. After all, you pay these chaps, and at the same time, you can still pay these guys you are pulling out from the security companies.
Now, Bish, it's not only in the rural setting that we have the issue of getting in touch with the security agencies, even in the urban centers. In Lagos, we hear about 112 and 767. But don't you think it is time we had a national number that you can call from any part of the country and you will get some kind of response?
Yes, I agree with you. Why not? I agree.
Actually, that question was for Bish.
I think it's long overdue that we have... I think it's long overdue that we have such number. I have been talking about situations like this for almost 3 years now. We are asking our citizens to help us in security, but we have not necessarily created the conducive environment for them to be able to assist us. Like if I'm an ordinary citizen and say, for example, I have mastered my neighborhood and then I see something that is out of place, it's very difficult for me to contact anyone. There is no one unique number, as you see in other countries, that you can dial and you get assistance. So the government has a very important role to play in that respect. And these technologies are there. Some folks in Lagos say their emergency line works. But when you say your emergency line works, when you dial that emergency number, who shows up? Is it ambulance? Is it fire? Is it police? If you go to other places where these emergency numbers work, if you just pick up your phone and dial, for example, 911, you're going to get ambulance services. You're going to get the police. You're going to get the fire department. When they get to the scene of the emergency, they will make a determination on whose areas of responsibility that emergency falls under. And that particular department will now take over from there. So when people in Lagos say their emergency line works, who shows up when they call the emergency line? And let me say this. We have gotten in the habit of whenever something works in Lagos or Abuja or any of these metropolitan cities, we said, okay, it works in Nigeria. No. Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt don't constitute Nigeria by themselves. There are other communities and towns and villages that make up Nigeria. So for us to say that something works in Nigeria, it means that those things have to work in those other places too, because people in those areas do have emergency requirements. So if you follow the trend of some of the insecurities that we're having in the country right now, a large number of these security problems do not emanate from the urban centers. They do emanate from the rural areas because there is largely unavailability of government presence in those areas. I listened to what the colonel said, and I can't agree more. There's a breakdown of leadership, especially at the community level, local government level. If you go back in time, our problem began when we started bastardizing our local government authorities. When the local government authorities were effective in this country, we didn't have much of these problems because they were very, very, very effective. You know, I know growing up, they used to have these sanitation officers that make sure they go house to house to make sure that, you know, every compound is clean and stuff like that. And if your compound is not clean, they will fine you. Those kind of services, you don't see them anymore. So because the local government system is eroded, there is no more government presence in the rural areas, we get all these kind of problems. There was another thing that the colonel mentioned about the use of private security. And I completely agree with him. I have been writing on this subject matter for a very long period of time. You know, the first citizens that we would want to assist us in fighting or, you know, in solving all this part of all these security challenges we have are those private security guards. Okay? We go to them first, get them trained, because I discovered that they don't have adequate training. We train them very well so that they'll be able to recognize threats when they exist. If we can incorporate the private security industry into our national security architecture, we will go a long way in solving some of our security problems. And we will go a long way in having citizens contribute to security.